to see if you were in there.
We'll just fire and you'll.
I don't know what I'm saying anyway.
I think a pretty good pretty nice PR job of themselves.
Nobody can defend crime or apologize or even take the blame for it. It is true that there is an increase in crime in Atlanta, but there's also a more dramatic increase in arrests. And what we have to understand is that the things that cause crime, particularly drugs, are not necessarily generated in the local community. A successful economic entity like Atlanta will attract criminals just as we attract new business. But our police force, I think, has been attempting to measure up to the task. And, you know, we do a very good job with what we have to work with. And crime is up all over.
But don't you think this report is, considering the types of figures that it involves, don't you think it might be slightly misleading?
Well, I think it's very misleading, but it doesn't do us any good to say we're, you know, better than Washington or better than Miami. Miami, New York, Detroit, Chicago were not even in the study, I understand. The thing that I think we're concerned about is how we can keep control of the crime in our area. They tend to lump all kinds of statistics. And the overwhelming majority of our crimes are not violent crimes. We have too many violent crimes. The fact is, though, that people in Atlanta report crime. We had a situation near my church on a Sunday morning where somebody snatched the purse of the minister's wife. In Washington and New York, you never would have heard about that. But by Sunday afternoon, they had recovered the purse. By Monday, they had arrested the perpetrator. That's, I think, one of the things that statistics don't indicate. And if you look at the crime solving rate, which is a better indication of the police force and what they're doing, we resolve more crimes and catch more criminals than almost any other major city in America.
Do you think that the district was trying to make themselves look good at our expense?
Well, I think the district is in real trouble. And they not only have the Metropolitan Police, they've got the Park Police, they've got the Capitol Police Squad, they've got more police per capita than any other city in America, I think. And still they have a serious crime problem, which ought to lead all of us to be a little more analytical to try to discover what is causing this. And it's clearly drugs, but we've even got to ask what's causing drugs. Drugs have been around a long time. They didn't reach epidemic proportions until recently. And now I think the nation is just beginning to mobilize to deal with the drug problem. And what we find consistently now, particularly amongst young people, is that the number of people who are involved in narcotics are going down every year. We know that we can deal with a crime epidemic. We know we can deal with a health epidemic. We've seen people stop drinking. We've seen people stop smoking, most intelligent people. And we're going to see people stop using drugs as we mobilize our entire community to confront the task.
D.C. is mobilizing a lot of people, but for the district to release figures like this, for the district to say, here are the top 16, and Atlanta is a whole lot worse than we are.
Well, but you let me manipulate statistics, and I can make us number 1 or number 10 or however you nobody will ever convince anybody in Atlanta that we're the most crime-ridden city in America.
More crime than Washington or Detroit?
or
Detroit or Miami or New York. It just ain't so.
Do you think that Mayor Berry is in trouble politically, Mr. Mayor?
Mayor Berry's problems, I think, are part and parcel of the whole problem. But Mayor Berry is not to blame for crime in Washington, nor are the police to blame for crime in Washington. I think crime is something we've got to get a better and deeper understanding of if we're going to take it seriously. It doesn't do anybody any good to shuffle blame around. We're going to deal with crime in Atlanta, and we're going to have a police force that catches criminals and that makes it sure that this is not the place where criminals can come and do as they will and get off light. We will have jails for people. We will have judges that will give people sentences. We have a prosecutor and a solicitor and a district attorney that are going to see to it that people get justice in relationship to crime. We're getting more and more concerned about protection for victims. We're just learning how to deal with some of the complicated problems of major metropolitan areas.
But the political reaction in Washington, we're told late this afternoon, and as reported by the media, is that Mayor Berry has released these figures and in fact manipulated them because of his own political trouble.
But I don't want to contribute to anybody else's political trouble, and I don't want to really get in the fight. Doesn't help anybody, and it doesn't solve a single crime or catch a single criminal. It really makes scapegoats that give the criminals free rein. And I think we've got to quit blaming each other and arguing about who's responsible and do something about it. And that's what we're trying to do with our police force.
But isn't it offensive to you that the district is releasing a ranking that the FBI doesn't release?
Well, I think that anybody who knows Atlanta and knows that this is the city that 600 business executives selected as the place they would most like to do business would know that that's not true. But even as I say that, Washington may be right up at the top of cities attracting new investment. So there is a sense in which when new money comes, new criminals come. And you have to adjust your crime-fighting methods to deal with the new criminals that come to your city. And that's what we're in the process of doing, and I think we're doing a pretty good job of it.
I can't help but think you would be, I mean, I'm offended to think that they manipulated us in the sense that they gave us these figures. I can't help but think that you would be offended that they would manipulate these figures to make themselves look good and
but
look bad.
Being offended should not really stop you from doing what you know to be right. And you don't get in that kind of fight. Nobody is helped by that.
How do you, I'm sorry, I arrived late and this may have already been asked, but how do you explain the figures? I mean, quite aside from who's responsible for releasing them or the political motives behind it.
It's very hard to explain. I think there's some things that are very clear. One, we're attracting more money to this area than any other area in the country. If you're attracting more money, you're likely to attract more criminals. Also, we still expect people to catch criminals so that every crime is reported. I remember not long ago, Atlanta was ranked in pickpockets and purse snatchings as 35 times the purse snatchings that they have in New York. Well, that's obviously ridiculous. In Atlanta, people expect you to catch people when they snatch their purse. And I've seen our police officers chasing people across Central City Park, and they catch them, and they go to jail. In New York, nobody even bothers to report that kind of crime, or in most major cities. So statistics are very misleading. The other problem we have with statistics is that our statistics are based on a 450,000 person area. But in the middle of the day, we may have 1 million people here. And yet, crime is not, the per capita crime is not established according to the actual population in the city. It's established according to the residential base. So that if you counted all of the convention visitors, and if you counted all of the people that come in here from the suburbs, of course the same thing is true of Washington. And so Statistics really can be manipulated almost any way somebody wants to manipulate them. But I don't want to get in an argument about statistics. I want us to look at crime. And I want us to make sure that we're doing everything we can to support the police in catching criminals and stopping crime. I was really pleased that the biggest drug bust in the nation started with C&S Bank here in Atlanta, which lets you know that our banks don't want to be laundering drug money. That may or may not be true in other cities, but it is true in Atlanta. And it does discourage drug sales to make sure that you can't feed that money directly into the banking system and launder it.
Is there anything you see in these statistics that's particularly alarming to you?
Well, I think the problem we have with the statistics is that for us it's an across-the-board increase, but of the 78,000 crimes that we have in this city, only about 15,000 are what we would call in any way violent, or crimes where people are directly involved and attacked. The overwhelming majority of our crimes are crimes against property. And we still report crimes against property. We report it when our stereos are stolen. We report it when somebody breaks into an automobile. So I think that people have a level of confidence in the police that expects them to resolve crime and to solve them. And we do. On that indicator, we are better than any major city in the nation in solving the crimes that are reported. And that's the valuation of the police, not the amount of crime that comes to the city. Now, all of this is partial analysis. I have not seen an in-depth analysis of the statistics. I got some quick response from the GBI, and I was grateful to Mr. Hamrick for giving us GBI statistics very quickly and allowing us to compare those with the statistics that I got from Commissioner Napa. But anybody that's serious about law enforcement and analyzes what we're doing will say that our law enforcement community is doing a good job in Georgia, and anybody that has any better ideas about what we can do, I'm certainly open to hear them, and we will certainly try them.
You friends with Mayor Barry?
I was. No, I think this is, this is a case of bureaucrats trying to get off the hook quick. And rather than taking the crime problem serious, they start trying to play games with statistics. But
You would be above that.
well, that's what I have tried not to get into a naming and blaming with any other city. Our problems are our problems, and we're going to do the best that we can to solve them. Thanks a lot.